welcome. Happy Thursday, happy Friday, wherever you are in the world. We are so happy to have you here at USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK. I'm the president, founder, and chief listening officer here at our network. Our show today is the Corner Bookstore, and boy, do we have a special event for you today. Let me welcome our panel as well as our guests. First of all, joining me is my co-host and friend. She is a woman with connections all over the world, in addition to being an international award-winning author. It's DIANN FLOYD BOEHM. Welcome.
Hi, Dr. JACALYN. How are you today?
Hi, DIANN. Great to see you. How are you doing?
Great. I am excited about today's show.
I am excited as well. We also have joining us as a special event, Mr. al.cini. Al.cini has been with me since the beginning, and he is someone who has extensive experience in the industry of broadcasting, as well as being a serial entrepreneur. Let's welcome al.cini to the show. Hi, Al.
Hey, Dr. JACALYN, and hi, DIANN. It's nice to see you. It's always great working with both of you.
Thank you.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
It's
and
nice
I'll tell you
to
what's
see
exciting me about today. We had a little bit of time to talk with BobBrillLA, our guest, great guest. In a world of explosions and car chases and CGI, I love authors who tell stories about people. And that whole idea of the power of storytelling, I think, is a worthy exploration. I'm looking forward to that.
I am as well. And you know, Bob has so many successes and so much expertise that I have to say I'm a little bit nervous here because I'm in such awe of him. He's joining us from Los Angeles, and he has an incredible podcast. He's going to be talking to us about that. Of course, this is the Corner Bookstore, so we're going to focus on his work. But to have somebody who has such extensive experience in radio, television, screenwriting, and he seems to be an awfully nice man. He seems very genuine. So let's bring out Bob Brill. Welcome to the show.
Well, hi, guys.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Al, DIANN. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to just ask the first question, which is, as I mentioned in the intro, you have accomplished so much, and yet you are so down to earth. You're so approachable. Even when you're doing your podcast, I watch a couple of the episodes. You're just so authentic. So how has success not gone to your head?
I don't make enough money to make it go to my head, so I guess that's the bottom line. You know, I guess if there were some bigger paychecks involved, it might. I don't know. I guess because a lot of what I do is, I've been in radio for 50 years. I just celebrated my 50th year in radio in March, and so my face never got out there very much. And I'm doing now with the world of Zoom and the world of the internet and the things we do. My face is getting out there again. Of course, it's a little different face than when I started in radio, but it had a little more hair at the time, and everything. But it's just been. I've always looked at life as like I like to think of myself as the average guy, I really do. And maybe it's my upbringing, maybe it's my dad, my mom. My dad always looked at people who thought they were better than or big. It's like, oh, geez, they're all big, and they think, they're that. They're not. They're just like me and you. We all put our pants on the same way, and everything. So I guess that's probably it. I've always kind of strived to be that way, and I like people. I really do. I mean, I enjoy people. I enjoy helping people, and that's always been kind of where I'm at. So yeah.
Great.
Thank you. So as somebody said to me when I was in my corporate career about this person, they said, you have a face for radio. You have a face and a voice for radio and for television. So you have the full package.
Well, thank you. The first person ever said that to me is my wife. So, I mean, and I guess she's really the only one that counts. So, but when it comes to that, but thank you. When I first got into radio, I had this really young voice, and I was always in awe of guys like Larry Van Nuys and Charlie Tuna and these big LA jocks and newscasters and the Walter Cronkites of the world. And I always thought, oh, geez, I hope my voice gets deeper. I hope my voice gets deeper. I hope my voice gets deeper. And for years, it was like, I was always, God, if I only had that voice, and my voice kind of never really changed. I guess it did, but I mean, it didn't change in my ears. And now I'm finding that I sound younger than I am. And so it's like, okay, I hope my voice doesn't get too old. I hope my voice doesn't get too old, and when they don't want you anymore, but yeah.
Well, you sound great.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You too. What kind of stories do you like to tell?
Oh, golly. Well, author-wise, I'm still 6 books into a 10-book series of Lancer Hero of the West, which is my Western series set in the 1880s about a good guy gunslinger who travels out of Tombstone, where he works, to solve crimes and things like that. And we've done the Prescott Affair, the LA Affair, Santa Fe, El Paso, New Orleans, and latest one is the Broken Bow Affair, Broken Bow, Nebraska. And so I love Westerns. That because I grew up with my father in the late 50s and early 60s watching Western. Every other show, it seemed like, was a Western on television. And being a child of the 50s and 60s, that's kind of where it was. Sports, I love baseball. I've written a baseball memoir based on youthful stuff that happens when you're growing up, as far as all centered around baseball. It's a relationship book. Coaches, friends, parents, aunts and uncles, all relatable stories, but it all kind of centers around baseball in some way, whether it's backyard baseball or street baseball or baseball, playing baseball. And I love telling stories with ironic endings. That it seems to be my mode, whether I'm writing a film script or whether I'm writing a TV pilot or writing a book. I always kind of end up. I don't really have a genre that I write. I kind of write in everything, except I can't write horror. I tried to write horror, and the thing is, it always ends up like Twilight Zone. And but I just get gore. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't come out, And a friend of mine asked me to write. He wanted to write a film script with me, and he wanted me to outline the script. And I did, and it didn't. It was a horror script, and it didn't come out that way. He goes, "Well, put your freak flag on." And I said, "I don't really have a freak flag, I don't, And and I had this great story. He hated it. I loved it, and we decided we couldn't work on that kind of stuff together. So we've actually worked on a film script which we haven't touched it in a while. It's based on a public domain book written in the 1800s about knights in shining armor, and eventually we'll get back to that as long as we're both still alive, I guess.
Cool. I'm kind of curious about one thing. You mentioned you have kind of a penchant for the ironic twist ending.
Yeah.
Do you write the ending first and then fill in the book from the beginning, or how do you get to the ending, Bob?
I sort of do. I get my best ideas when I'm driving. Always have, whether I'm driving down the street. And that's why I keep my phone nearby where I can just hit record, and I record the ideas and save them for later. But yeah, so a lot of stories that I get start from something I see on the road, or maybe in the sky or whatever, and it kind of leads me to a movie scene. Because everything I write with the idea that it's a movie scene. That's where I have to put myself in that scene, and then I write from that. But I'd say 99% of the time, I do have the ending and the beginning first. And then, as as an author, you kind of got to, okay, how do I get from point A to point Z with stopping at P, M, J, and everything in the middle? And so yeah, I do. When you bring that up, I hadn't really thought of it before, but yes, that is exactly what I do.
It's interesting.
Did you already know that, Al? You suspected it?
No, but I do know that if Bob's driving in LA, he's not moving much, so we can probably make that an actual waiting book in traffic.
Especially in LA, right? We have
Oh yeah, you're not moving, so why
no.
not?
Yeah, the one book which you mentioned, we that I do podcasts, and I'm doing this. We decided, I had a meeting with an entertainment lawyer, and he said, you know, I think you ought to turn your passion script, which is based on a book I wrote, and it's what I call a coffee table biography. It's not a book like this. It's a book like this. You know, that's the back cover, by the way. I'll show you. And it's based on a story that I found on my birthday when I was 6 years old. And I've had this story ever since. I won't tell you how many years, because that'll tell you how old I am, and that wouldn't be a good thing, would it? But so anyway, I've had that thing in my mind, and I actually researched this person, found out where they lived. Unfortunately, they had died by that point, but I ended up interviewing their daughter, the couple, and writing a story on, and then from that grew, and what I did, I wrote a column about them for a publication, and that grew into a book, and that grew into me acquiring much of their estate and a lot of memorabilia. And basically, it was a woman by the name of Patricia Rudolph, who married Don. Well, that was her married name, was Don Rudolph. Don Rudolph was a pitcher in the major leagues, and from 1958 to 1965, and she was one of the top burlesque queens in the country. And I got tons of publicity photos. I have over 10,000 photos. I have, and that's publicity as well as, you know, just average photos they took. And I own autographed baseballs, autographed photos, all kinds of stuff. The idea was to do 3 books. We did one. Didn't sell very well, and the publisher decided, you know, which I totally concurred with, you know, not to go for a second one, because it's a very expensive book. It was a coffee table book in a niche field. And so, I mean, it was a $50 book. And we wrote it called Fan Letters to a Stripper, a Patty Wagentail. And that was her stage name, was Patty Wagon. And this is the cover of that book, which you can see there. And there we go. And I said the back cover. My daughter picked that photo for the cover, and then I picked the back photo because basically it says the end. So, basically, and I have over here to my left one of her costumes. I had 2 of her costumes, and what we're doing is we're taking we're having the photo of the costume digitized, and then we're superimposing 3 different photographs, and we haven't decided whether it's going to be background or on the front. Actually we're working on that today, and we're going to make an NFT out of those 3, where you can purchase, we'll make 1,000 of one, and where you can purchase that for like $20, and then the other 2 will make 100, and then 10, and obviously at substantially higher prices. And hopefully that will help fund not only the podcast, but get us into an area where we'd like to be, which is film production. And we're doing it mainly because turning into a podcast, because we want to get the attention for a film. And I wrote the script 10 years ago, and it's been, you know, hasn't been the right time or whatever. But turning it into a podcast has been a major production. We had, I was looking over it when I was turning the film script into a podcast, you know, because there's a lot of things in film where it's like show, don't tell. Well, on radio, you can't show, don't tell. You have to kind of work around that. So there's a little narration, which I do, and I think I played one other role. But as I went through it, I looked, oh my gosh, there's 100 speaking roles. How in the world did I write 100 speaking roles in a 2-hour film, you know? And but a lot of them were man in crowd, woman at USC, man on bus, that type of stuff, gas station attendant, where they only have one line. So I figured, okay, what we can do is have like one actor play like 6 roles, because over the course of a 12 episode podcast, nobody is going to know that man in crowd in episode 1 is the same person as man on bus in episode 10. Okay. It's not a big deal. And so we hired probably about 25 actors and actresses. The girl who played Patty is just nailed it. I mean, her name's Hannah Cooney, and she is just tremendous. I almost feel embarrassed for what I paid her, because I had paid everybody, right? And then the guy that played the actor that played Don Rudolph is a very good actor who played Sundown in my short film, Eric Heisner. And then, of course, all the rest of the people, and a lot of them are great radio voices. Many retired people that I know and knew a long time ago from the LA market. Several people have retired, including Joe Calla, who's 90 years old, and Joe played a pretty big part. So it's been a fun project. The editing to me is actually fun. I love it, but there's over 1,000 edits, at least, and I'm not even finished yet. I'm still putting in sound effects at this point, and and then we're having it scored as well. So it's a project that people have been telling me, I know you've been wanting to do this for years, a long time, and I'm happy to be a part of the project. I'm glad, and I'm really excited about it. We're going to release, the target date is the end of September. We have a PR firm lined up to publicize it, and hopefully the NFTs will sell. And I'm also looking for a sponsor at this point. I have a couple of people I'm talking to, and we haven't decided where we're going to release it yet. We may release it through Odyssey, which is the radio company that I work for. I'm a newscaster at KNX, the news radio station in Los Angeles, and so it's that kind. We're talking. We haven't really decided that yet. But anyway, but that's what that project's about. So it's probably more than you wanted to know, but that's okay.
No, that's
Wow.
absolutely.
Congratulations.
Really congratulations. Diane, I'm sure you could relate to this as an author yourself. I mean, everybody likes to say, well, the story wrote itself. But I don't think any author ever had a story write itself, did they? I mean, that's kind of made up, isn't it?
I think so. For sure. But I understand about the editing as well, and that whole thought process. And kudos for you. That is major hard work, and it's an art in itself. The editing. It's just like when I'm in the theater on stage. The director has his do scenes differently until he gets it just the way he wants, and that's the same with film. You work it, you put the music in, the sound, and so forth. So I'm going to look forward to seeing it.
Well, thank you. It is a major project, and it's, like I said, it's fun to do that part of it. I think adding the sound effects, and the weird thing is, in my programs that I have probably 1,000 sound effects, but they're not always perfect. And so I've actually gone out with my iPhone and recorded some things just in restaurants, in stores, on the street that I ended up using because I couldn't find that perfect sound effect. Even there's a lot of free services that offer them, and of course there's YouTube, which has a lot of them as well. And it's you have something in your head, but you can't find it. And I said, okay, simple thing like at the very beginning, some little boys go into the very first scene. They go into a store in 1959 to buy some baseball cards, because the first place that I saw her picture was on the back of his baseball card in 1959. The Topps baseball cards in 59 had a cartoon on the back. And I'm very involved in baseball cards selling and buying, and so I'm still into that. But it was a cartoon about her dancing on a table, kicking up her skirt, kicking up her leg, and the ball player was sitting at the table, leaning in, looking up her skirt. And this is on the back of a baseball card in 1959, and I'm 6 years old, right? And it's my birthday, and it's my first pack of baseball cards, and I won't go into all the detail of how I got there. But I'm looking at this and saying, and I'm just pre-raging hormones, right? And I'm looking at this thing saying, oh my gosh, what is this? But it stuck with me, and I've had it since that many years ago, and always wanted to do something with it. I eventually found them. It turns out they lived less than a mile away from where I was growing up in Southern California. Um, they banked at the bank across the street from my house. And I know that because I have checks, signed checks and things like that I got in the estate. So I mean, this whole story came together over the course of 60 odd years, and it's been, that's why I've kind of really stuck with it and stuck through it and wanted to do this. But so yeah, that's kind of where that goes. I'm sorry to keep going on about it, but it's a thing that I'm really excited about now because we're getting close to releasing it. So
no, that's exciting.
That adrenaline goes up higher and higher as you get closer, right?
Yeah, so does my voice a little bit when we do that.
Bob, I have a question about something that you alluded to a little bit earlier. We saw during the pandemic the emergence of Clubhouse and audio only app, so you can't actually see each other. And then you talked about the podcasts and the various voices, and it almost reminded me of, I think it was the generation before me, but where you had the radio and everybody was around it with an ear listening. And I feel like there's such a need for that. In addition to seeing people, sometimes we don't actually need to see them. We want to just be able to close our eyes and envision that we're there with you in radio land. Do you ever feel like that when you're doing your work?
Actually, yes. And I can tell you that I did it as frequently as yesterday, because when I edit a scene in this podcast, I'll always, after I think I've got it right, I'll sit back and do this, and I'll play it, and I'll just listen to it because that's how you're going to hear it, and the listener, and every listener's going to hear it. So I want to see how it flows, and so yes, I do exactly that. I mean, I grew up listening. I'm from Pittsburgh originally, and I'm a diehard Pirates, Penguins, and Steelers fan. And I grew up listening to the radio and games on the radio because you only had one game of the week on TV. So at that time, and that was Saturday, and and I was usually playing baseball on Saturday, so I couldn't even go. Very rarely sit and watch a game unless the Pirates were playing. Then I forced myself to sit down and watch a game. But my father and I would listen to games on the radio. I remember listening to one Indy 500 on the radio. I had an old radio. My father, it was an old RCA Victor. My father picked up at a garage sale, and I always, it's a tube radio. And I had it sitting on the back porch because I wanted to listen to the Indy 500, which I never really did. It was just, it was for some specific reason I wanted to listen to this one. And it wasn't on TV. It was absolutely not on TV. So I had to turn it on the radio, and there I was in the backyard with a glass of iced tea and some watermelon, listening to the radio and listening to the Indy 500. So I grew up in that transition era where we went from that to the golden age of television, which was started in the 50s and lasted through the 60s. And of course, then the networks exploded and everything. But yeah, that was, I absolutely still do that today.
That's cool. That's well, when I worked very early on, a long time ago, I worked at a local television station in Philadelphia, and they had a Foley artist who was the guy that makes sound effects.
Yeah. Right.
And he said, come down the basement. I just asked him what it was like to do that. He said, come down the basement. Let me show you. And the way they make sounds, well, like you said, you're looking for the right sound for a door slamming shut, or you're looking for the right sound for people walking into a room. The way he did that, I mean, it was cardboard boxes, wooden boxes, pails filled with halfway and all the way with water, and lots of cans and stuff that you'd find in somebody's kitchen that he just knew that if you hit it a certain way, you'd get the sound you wanted. And the guy was a genius at it.
Well, yesterday, I mean, I was looking for a sound effect because Patty is sitting there opening fan letters, and she's referring to that. And the sound effect that I had for a letter opening was terrible. I mean, it was just, it didn't sound like it. So I took my iPhone and I started recording it, and I found a piece of mail that was junk mail that I hadn't opened yet. And as I did, I ripped it, and it's perfect. And I slotted it in yesterday, and it is absolutely perfect. But I was mentioning about the boys running in and buying the baseball cards. The bell on, when you walk into usually a private independent store, you hear a little bell. And I found sound effects that were bells, but not that one. And so, I still have to do this. There's a few, like liquor stores around here that have that. And so I'm going to walk in with my iPhone and say, excuse me, I'm going to record this. I hope you don't mind. I'm not trying to, videotape your store or anything like that. But just open the door and get that sound and then plug it in, which will be a whole lot easier than looking for days and days and days over the internet trying to find that particular sound.
Yeah. That's, I when you're talking about radio, I think it's these little things make a big difference when you're telling a story in that medium. So good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think there's probably going to be well over 200 different sound effects in this, because some of them I'll use over and over. Door slamming in a car, they're getting out of a car, that kind of thing. Rain, that kind of thing.
It's amazing how much work goes into all of it. It's like a Broadway production.
Yes. Actually, if you don't mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my camera and real quickly, I will show you what that screen looks like right there.
Yep,
those are all individual edits.
Audio clips. Wow.
Yeah, those are all audio clips. And it's just, and this is probably, that's even close. That's like an hour and 50 minutes. Actually, it's about 50 minutes of it, if I look at it. So
that's a lot of work.
So cool.
Yeah, I will show you.
Cool.
This is
oh
the
my
costume.
gosh, look at that.
Oh, the costume.
That's the costume. If I can get a little better. There we go. And that costume is about 65 years old.
It's gorgeous.
Beautiful.
And we had to, my wife had her mother had the back there. Her mother had I guess you call it a form, because she used to sew, and we decided to put to take the picture by putting Patty's costume on the form. Well, we had to kind of keep squishing it and take Velcro and tighten it around and around and around, because she is so freaking little. I couldn't believe it, how little she was. I mean, just unbelievably little. Whoops, I was wondering where that noise was coming from. That was, I accidentally hit the start button on the podcast there. But so, I mean, she's so tiny that, or was so tiny that it was like, oh, we're going to be able to get this on the form without ripping the dress, because the dress, like I said, it hasn't been worn in 60 years. It comes with everything, including pasties. So that was kind of, I never thought I would hold in my hand somebody's sweaty pasties, pasties from 60 some odd years ago, and it was like, oh geez, here we go.
A boy's fantasy.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So what is
interesting
Patty's story?
Okay.
I'm curious about Patty's story and how it unfolds.
It basically starts with her. She had a kind of a troubled home life, and she got married like when she was 15, and had it annulled. Her mother had it annulled about a year later, and I actually met her first husband. The other two were dead by then, but he found me. The interesting story was he has passed away since. He read the article I wrote, and he had not known anything about Patty since they broke up in the 1940s. And she went on to Chico State College, where she went for like 2 years. And she stripped her way through college, basically. She worked in San Francisco and a couple other places, mainly in San Francisco at the time. And at the time, they were burlesque theaters. You know, they were strip clubs, but they were burlesque theaters. They had stages and everything. And then long before the quote unquote gentlemen's clubs, and the whole scene changed with television. When television came in, it kind of killed burlesque. And so her story was she ended up meeting Don somewhere in 1955, or before that they got married. He was in the minor leagues at the time. And from the letters that I have that they wrote back and forth and other letters, I mean, she documented almost everything. I have her contracts. I have his contracts. In 1959, he was making like $150 a week pitching for the Chicago White Sox. She was making $450 a week, taking her clothes off in Indianapolis at a theater and dancing. You know, but I have multiple contracts. I have letters. She collected all sorts of newspaper clippings and everything. And the book, Fan Letters to a Stripper, is exactly that. It's photographs and letters and a little bit of text. But we've actually published the letters that men and actually women wrote to her. One of them I kind of Hollywoodized in the podcast. There was a stalker. There was a guy who was stalking her, and I wrote that in and into the podcast, or into the film script, and then into the podcast. So there was, you know, working in the theater at that time, well, any time, but especially at that time, there's a lot of, you know, stuff that happened that you didn't, you know, which wasn't nice. So I'll make it nice and simple. But there were a lot of great people too, and other acts and other people. And there's three main characters. It's Patty, her husband Don, and then her best friend, who's her manager, who I based on the real life person, a woman by the name of Lillian Hunt, who's I gave her the name Lillian Trace. And the funny thing was about her, and doing my research, I used to own a baseball card store in Ventura, and it turns out my rep for my newspaper ads was Lillian's granddaughter. And I didn't know that until after I closed the store. And it just kind of happened. She goes, "No, that was my grandma. I knew Patty." And I was like, "Really?" You know? So, I mean, all these things have come together in such a way that's like, there's no denying I need to do this story. And I've always wanted to do it, but I really kind of feel I have to do it, you know. And did the book, I wrote the film script, hasn't been produced yet. And so the podcast will be the next step in that evolution, so to speak.
That's great.
I think she's she's knows that you're interested in her, because, you know, we're all full of energy, and I think her energy is coming into so that her story can be told, because it sounds like a fabulous one.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's funny because her daughter said that after Don was killed, she lived for another. He was killed in '68. She died in '92, and her daughter said that she would never swat a fly, because I guess she believed in reincarnation, and I felt it might be Don, you know. And I don't want to kill him a second time. But, that was kind of who she was. One of the scenes is very, very brief is at the time, major league players would play winter ball in the off season. They'd go to the Caribbean mainly and play winter ball, and he played for a team in Havana, and during the Revolution, you know. So and the daughter said that they told her they would hear gunshots and stuff. So I kind of incorporated something in there as well. It's sort of, I guess I should describe it. I do describe it as America grow. It's this great love story between a burlesque queen and a major league ball player as America grows up in the background, because it does, changing morals, and they were somewhat involved in civil rights, because at the time, black girls and white girls in many cities could not perform in the same clubs, and Patty fought against that. From what we see in her letters, and according to one of the now passed away, strippers who knew her and also knew Betty Page, worked with them both, told me. And Don was very, very much into helping Black players in the transition, because he came up right after Jackie Robinson. Robinson was 47. He came to the majors in 57. So, but was in the minor leagues at that other time. So there's a lot that goes on in those regarding those issues, which I really decided I wanted to play up, because they're good stories, and even if they weren't exactly what happened, there was enough there that it made for a really good story, and hopefully will become a motion picture at some point.
Bob, I'm very engaged by the stories that you're telling, and I'd love for you to read for us from one of your books.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that'd be fun. The latest one is called The Tattoo Murder, which is a fictional story. And I've been told I have to write the sequel. So the sequel will be the same character, but based on an actual murder that I covered in Fresno that I'm going to transport to Ventura, because this book takes place in Ventura, California, where I spent about 12 years, actually more than that. And this is the cover. It's published by Tuscany Books, and it's basically about a detective who surfs and is a different kind of cop. And the two things about it is, number one, it has a constant timeline. Every scene tells where it is, time of day, what day. And in the middle, there's 10 photographs of places, real life places in Ventura where the events like the murders and everything take place. So I wanted you to have the feel that you were there, like it was real, and like it was a true story rather than just a fictional story. But the opening scene takes place at the beach at the end of Seaward Drive, Ventura, California, Thursday morning, March 23rd, 2012, 7:15 a.m. The bruised, battered, and bloated body of a big man lay nestled up against the jagged rocks, which formed the breakers along the central California coastline. The officers of the Ventura Police Department don't usually get to see the bodies of victims pushed up on the shore by the powerful waves this far from Surfers Point. These types of crimes are usually reserved for their counterparts in the big cities of Los Angeles and San Diego. It's not that Ventura doesn't have crime, it does. Bodies washing up on shore, especially those battered as this one was, highly unusual. Any idea who the stiff is? The policeman asked the half-dressed man who had come out of his beachfront home to see what all the fuss was about. No one I know, the 30-ish man with the long, scraggly hair and tattoos replied. Of course, who could tell? He's pretty messed up. The officer heard another patrol car approach and looked over his shoulder to see the backup units moving into place. A small crowd was beginning to gather. There were several coffee shops at the end of Seaward, where it dead-ended at the beach, just a couple of 100 feet from the breaker. They were open for their usual morning business, and police cars do draw crowds. Folks in hooded sweatshirts stretched their necks, hoping to get a look at the body uncovered on the beach. But others held their latte-laden silver mugs in hand, trying to outguess the cops and put their own spin on the story before it developed. Start putting up the tape. Block this area off, the first officer yelled to the others. It's got some pretty fancy artwork there, huh? Not unlike yours, eh? A man looked at his arms covered with tattoos and glanced back down at the body. They were both covered in tats, and while it may have given the officer pause for the question, the man shrugged it off. It's Ventura, man. Everybody's got tats, the bystander offered back. The man shrugged it off with a bit of disgust toward the cop and headed back to his house as another officer joined the first. That's some pretty nasty crap, man. How long you think he's been dead? A different word than crap in there, but that's okay. The first officer approached the body and made a preliminary guesstimate, not wanting to get too close and certainly not wanting to disturb anything. The only thing the cops could tell at the moment was the body was male, kind of heavy, but due to the bloating, who knew how much was really a heavy man and how much was nature taking its course. The seaweed wrapped around his torso didn't help, and there was blood, but that could have easily come from the rocks. Hard to tell. Depends on how long he's been in the water, but that's up to the coroner, the old elder cop explained. Anyway, this isn't up to us anymore. Get a call out to Potenza's cell. It's his case now. Two officers just looked at each other and smiled. The second looked at his watch. he's not going to like this. It's pretty early for him, and he's probably not alone. They both laughed as they headed back toward their squad cars. The younger officer put his cell phone to his ear slightly, fearing the response he'd get when his party answered. And that's where Officer John Potenza is with his lady, getting up and heading to the shower that morning. So I'll leave the steamy sex scene to the next chapter.
Us readers.
Very good. Really, really vivid writing.
Thank you. Thank
Really
you.
vivid.
I've been told by several people that they really they like the sex scenes. What happened was that I originally wrote it, and I wrote it like 10 years ago, and it's been sitting on a shelf since. And it's just been, it was the second book I wrote, first novel, and I made the mistake of letting my daughter read it, and I made the mistake of letting my sister read it, both avid readers. And my daughter said, "I can't read this. My dad wrote this. I can't read this. No way." And my sister was not happy. And so I set it on the shelf and I said, okay, I understand. I got to tone it down. And I did. I toned it down quite a bit. Evidently some people think I didn't tone it down enough, but they enjoyed it. So I get the most common comment I get is not only about the sex scenes, because John Potenza, the officer, has a lot of, I guess he's sort of like a James Bond, local James Bond, but he has his main squeeze too. And but the biggest comment I get, and one I really like, is I couldn't put it down. I got engaged with it. I couldn't put it down. Right. And I think one of the reasons for that is the timeline. Every few pages, every time the scene changes, there's a timeline. It tells you where it's at, what time of day, what day it is, and a real short description. And I look at it like they could be 2 pages apart. They could be 10 pages apart, but chances are they're all 2 or 3 pages apart. And if you're reading a book, at least me, as I'm getting tired, I look to see how far it is to the end of the chapter, because I hate to stop reading in the middle of a chapter. It means I got to go back and reread. And so I want to read to the end of the chapter. And I think what people do is they look at it and say, well, I'm going to read to the end of the chapter. Oh, I'll just read to the end of the scene. And that's only 2 pages. But the next scene's only 3 pages. So I'll read that one. Next scene's only 2 pages. So I'll read that one. And before you know it, they've read another 15 or 20 pages. And they're realizing, where it's at. So that's one of the things I wanted to do. And it seems to have worked. I mean, it really did. So the sequel will have the same format, and as well as photos.
I know we're getting close to wrapping, and I wanted to say really quick, I just looked at Amazon and your books are there. So an author search for Bob Brill will find both A Tattoo Murder.
There it is. I just ordered it.
And
thank you.
Letters to a Stripper, and they're great reads. Terrific, great work, Bob.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So I got another 45 cents in my account now.
Yay! Don't spend it all
we
on
authors,
Bob.
Yeah, we authors make so much money. Before
spend it wisely,
go, though, yeah, spend it wisely, right? Before we go, could you tell them real quick about your filmmaking? The top.
Sundown. Yes. Sundown was a short film we did. It runs about 9.5 minutes, and we did a trailer with it, which runs 59 seconds. And you commented before we got on the air about the trailer, and the trailer was easy. It kind of just came together, and but basically, and it finished in the top finalists in a recent film festival we entered it into. We had not entered the trailer into any before this one, and Sundown itself has won 3 awards and a couple of semifinalists and finalists in film fests. And the thing about Sundown, it's based on a Marty Robbins song, and I think Marty Robbins is the greatest song storyteller in country music of all time, and especially westerns. And as I mentioned, I write Western genre as well. And when I listened to this story, I said, this is going to be really kind of cool, and it's compact where I can do it. So we shot it in 5 hours. We shot the film. Excuse me. We shot the film in 5 hours at the Roy Rogers Ranch out in Victorville. and it was 4 actors, and really there was 3 actors and me, because the 4th actor was the bartender, only has a couple of lines, and only reason I put myself in it was because the 4th actor, whoever I got kept bailing on me, and I said, well, forget that, I'll save the money and I'll do it myself, and I had my assistant director shoot those scenes, and but it's based on a song that Marty Robbins did called "The Ballad of Bill Thaxton," and as it turns out, that is a scene that is a small part of another Western film script I wrote called Iron Gun, which is based on 3 Marty Robbins songs, Big Iron, this one, and there's one other song. So, but I'd love to get that one made. If we get that one made, this will be probably reshot, but it'll be a portion of that film. And you can find that on YouTube. You can go to my YouTube channel, the Bob Brill YouTube channel, and you can find both Sundown, which I said is 9.5 minutes, and the Sundown trailer, which is there as well.
Great.
Thanks for sharing. They're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant.
Thank you very much. That was my first real attempt. It took me a long time to sit down and write a Western, because Western readers, more than probably any other genre, are very, very hardcore if you write something that could not have happened. Real quick example, in the New Orleans affair, I was looking for, part of it takes place on a riverboat, and I wanted to name the riverboat a real name. Well, it takes place in 1883, and I had to find a riverboat that was still in existence in 1883 that wasn't made and set sail in 1886, because I knew what would happen is I would get called out on it right away. So with the internet now, research is so much easier, especially on Western stuff, because there is a lot of Western documentation that was only in museums or private collections that now they put online, and you can actually document train schedules and things like that, and riverboat schedules. So it's become so much easier to do that kind of stuff, and tackling a Western was something, and now I've written 6. So
good for you. Wow.
Bob, I don't know where you find the time, but congratulations on all of your work.
Great work.
Fabulous.
Great
So
work.
interesting. Yeah, you just pull us in. Do you feel that way? You're just being pulled in by his voice?
Yes, absolutely. And I hope you'll come back in September for the kickoff.
Yeah, no,
we want to hear.
Whenever you want me back, I'll come back. Yeah, and hopefully, like I said, the end of September, we're looking to have this particular production out, and hopefully, we'll make a big splash, and it leads to a film script or a film production, and go from there. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Yeah, good luck.
There we go.
Congratulations. We'd love to have you on the Film and Music Show as well. So
sure, anytime.
Okay. So Bob, I'm going to spotlight you once again for people who are not able to read the banner, or they didn't hear how they can connect with you. What's the best way for people to reach out, and who would you like to reach out?
Anybody. People with money to spend on a film, anybody there. But no, seriously, anybody. The easiest way to find me is if you Google Bob Brill. I come up usually 17 of the top 20. I'm not Bob Brill, the IP attorney in Chicago. I'm not Bob Brill, the drummer for Berlin. I'm not Bob Brill, the Oscar-winning set designer, Tony-winning set designer, and I'm definitely not Bob Brill, the bodybuilder. That's but my picture's usually there. I'm pretty easy to find. My email, or you can go to bobbrill.com or bobbrillbooks.com, where all my books are as well. And so any of those ways you'll be able to reach me, and usually my phone number's there as well. So that's easy. Anybody who really has an interest in moving productions along or that kind of stuff, or just wants to chat, I'm pretty open. And I do sell baseball cards too, so that's another thing. So that's cool. I was an icon in that industry when I had my own publication, but I that's something I enjoy, and it's fun because I actually do make some money off that. So that's always fun.
We have to have a show on the baseball cards alone. I
You
have
got
5
it.
brothers, and
Absolutely.
oh my gosh,
I'm really
I think
glad
we
you're
grew
not the
up in the
Bob.
same time period. So
I'm
Anytime.
really
I
glad
mean,
you're not the BobBrillLA I owe $50 to.
yeah, I think I am. So there we go.
I love it.
Let's see,
Yeah,
Bob. Can you show us again? Oh, yeah, fabulous.
That's
Wow.
one of my favorites, and my
Nice.
hero though is always been Bill Mazeroski, who I was very fortunate. He's still alive. I was very fortunate for my 2 sons and I. We took him out for drinks when he was out here in Southern California for a book for a trading card show, and I made arrangements to take him out. He's always been my favorite player, my hero. I've written 2 articles after interviewing him a couple of times, and I at the end, he drinks vodka martinis, right? And he probably had 3 or 4 of them. And he was going to try to pay for the drinks. And I said, "Are you kidding me? You're my hero. You think I'm going to let you pay for the drinks? What are you, nuts?" You know? And he goes, "No, I'll pay for them." I said, "No, you're not. I'm paying.
That's
I'm taking you out. Sorry, man. You're not paying for your own drinks." So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, it's memorable. Great.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the Pittsburgh Steelers. We actually interviewed the head neurologist for Dr. Joseph Maroon. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah.
But I'd
No,
love
I
to
don't.
connect you with him.
Yeah, no, I'm probably, Steeler fans are pretty rabid, and I've been a Steeler fan since before those years when they started winning Super Bowls. I've been a Steeler fan when they would show the bloopers and everything in NFL films, and the Steelers were the team that was making the blooper. They were the one losing the ball there, and so there's so many Steeler fans that have come on since the 70s, and that's great because we're all part of Steeler Nation. But yeah, I am a real diehard Steeler fan, and more so, well, not more so than the Pirates and Penguins. I love all 3 teams, and but I am so excited for this season with Kenny Pickett and George Pickens and the team revamping, because my fantasy team, Ben Roethlisberger, was always my fantasy quarterback, and so now I've got to, let's see, we're drafting on August 28th. I'll say this, hopefully my other members of my league don't know this. If he's there, I'm drafting Kenny Pickett first.
You heard it here.
I have number 4 overall, so I'm open.
Where's your terrible towel, Bob?
It's actually in the other room. I do have one of the originals.
Good.
And it's funny too, because I don't have it out here, but I don't think I do. In the 60s, they came up with the green weenie, and the Pirates came over, and it was this little green hot dog looking little thing with funky hair, and we would shake it as sort of like a rally monkey or something like that. And I remember watching the game, the Pirates and the Giants in San Francisco, and the USS Enterprise was in the bay, and Pirate announcer Bob Prince said, "We've been asked not to use the green weenie at this game during this period." The U.S. Navy said, "The green weenie is so powerful, it just may sink the Enterprise, and we don't want to do that."
That's a great story.
It is a great story. Bob, have you ever thought of doing stand-up comedy?
I did once, just one day. Yeah, and I bombed, and I said, "No, that was it." It was in. I was out of work and working in. I was out of work and lost my job in Tulsa, and a local theater had a night of stand-up comedy, and anybody could volunteer, and I made a mistake of telling children jokes because we had our second kid, and I started telling children jokes I thought would be really funny. This was a crowd that was drunk before I even got on, and so the children jokes went, like that. And okay, the first thing I said, I got a laugh, and I don't remember what it was. I remember putting down the theater owner, and that got a great laugh. And then, it was just like it didn't go over after that. I couldn't just wait. I couldn't wait to get off. So, but that was my entry into stand-up comedy and my exit stand-up comedy. So.
Well, you are funny though. So
Well,
keep telling those stories. And I will introduce you to Dr. Maroon. You might interview him on your show. Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah. I love, the one podcast I do, Interesting People with Bob Brill, where I interview people about their jobs. And I think everybody has an interesting job, whether they think they do or not. The last thing I did on there was in March, when I celebrated my 50th anniversary in radio, I decided for 31 days, I was going to tell a different story each day about life on the radio. And whether it was saving Ronald Reagan's life, quote unquote, or covering, getting beat up in the LA riots, or other stories, my first job, which was a funny story, or, all kinds of stuff. But I told 31 days, a different story each day. And sometimes they last 5 minutes, sometimes they last 15 minutes. But it was fun to do. And it's been one of those things that for that podcast, it was just perfect. So.
Yeah, that is a great idea. I'm thinking about it now myself. Thank you for that idea.
Oh, you're very welcome. Take it and run with it.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. And again, we'd love to have you back. So please do book in again. And
Sure.
I'm looking forward to the book, and we'll bring you back on. And after I've read it, and have another chat, if that works for you.
It works for me. You got it. Just anytime. And it was a pleasure being here. Believe me, it was a lot of fun.
Total pleasure
Thank
for
you.
us.
Pleasure was
Thank
ours.
you.
Absolutely.
All right, Bob, take care. We'll see you again.
You got it.
Bye.
Bye.
I really enjoyed that, didn't you?
Oh, it was fabulous.
I could listen to him all day, seriously, although my next show starts in less than 3 minutes. So,
Diann. You have to give him credit for bringing all these characters to life.
Yes.
Diann knows this. Bringing a character to life, a fictional character, even a real character that you need to fictionalize in a way to make it interesting. It's tough to be a writer. And, Diann, you're a great one. And so is Bob.
Thank you. Historical writing is so difficult. So he was right about that research. People will just really nail you if you don't get it right. So kudos for him. But what an interesting character. And he's his genres are so diverse, with the Westerns, and then, this stripper lady, and then the radio, and then I love baseball cards. So that's really great too.
I wanted to ask him, when he was talking about the steamy sex scenes, did he come up with these ideas when he was driving in his vehicle in LA, or did he have some intimate knowledge of them, if you will?
I think he would have had a wreck.
That's why I didn't ask him.
And now he's prepared for that question when he comes back.
Yes, exactly. We'll go. Yeah, now he's prepared. That's right. I'm sure he's still listening backstage.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you,
Diann. I'm going to spotlight you. Can you please tell the audience about your new book, Time to Fly?
Sure, I'll be happy to. Everyone, thank you for being on our show today. It really was a great one. Al, please come back and co-host with us again. That was so much fun. So the book, real quick, is A Time to Fly, and it's all about a baby bird who is afraid to leave the nest because he's just so happy and cozy, and he's not quite sure that he can fly. But thanks to his mama and watching his brothers and sisters take off, he gets the courage, and away he goes and soars. And that's kind of like life for us people too. So it's a book that everyone can enjoy, and you can find it on Amazon and your other local bookstores. Thank you, Dr. JACALYN.
That sounds like a great book, Diann. And you've written so many good ones. You've already built a huge library of terrific children's stories. I'm sure this is a great addition for that. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to you doing another commercial for me.
I'll look forward to that. That was fun. Great subject matter. It really is. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Cini, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
The best way is to send me an email at al.cini, al.cini at getbcat.com. We can talk about team building or group dynamics or anything you want. And Dr. JACALYN, I really want to thank you for inviting me. I don't normally appear on this program, but this was such a great opportunity to work with the two of you, and a great guest. Bob Brill he was just a very interesting guest to talk to, and I'd love to do it again sometime.
Fantastic. Al. You're
Absolutely.
welcome.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
I'll just close this out with this. Yesterday, I sent out our newsletter, The Global Post, and both Al and Diane are featured in it. So you can actually go over to usaglobaltv.com, subscribe, or you can go to my Facebook page, which is JACALYN KERBECK, and you'll see the Global Post there. You can click on the graphics, and you can go directly to contact them and hire them for their work. So
Great.
thank you both. We are signing off because the film and music show already started, and I'm not there. So I'll see
We'll get 'em.
everybody later.
Thanks, Doc.
Bye,
Bye for
everybody.
now.